Welcome back to Mohawk Motors, everybody. My name is Jason, and as you saw, I've got the frames prepped, and we're gonna cut them in this video, and we're gonna splice them back together. We're gonna turn two unusable frames into one nice frame. So let me show you where I'm at now. I've got them both frames supported, that one on jack stands, this one on the lift. They are both level side to side and level front to back, which is very important because we are going to use level for our layout lines for where our cuts are going to be. Now, I went through and I cleaned both frames all the way down to nice, shiny, polished metal where I'm going to be making my layouts. And I'm using a Sharpie marker to make my layouts because that Sharpie line is the same width as my cutoff disc. Guys, I'm just using an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel on it. Nothing special, nothing fancy to do this. And I like doing it that way because I can be very, very accurate. That thing removes material slowly and it removes material accurately. And that's what I want to do because I want to get this frame back together better than it ever was. So I've already laid out my cut lines here on the frame with the rusty back section. And I'm gonna start, obviously I've mapped from the inside, top inside of the C, over the top, down the side, make my step back, and then down around and through to the back as well. And in case if you're wondering, well, how did you decide where to cut, Jason? I had a couple things that helped me decide here. The first and foremost is my frame is only really bad from here back. All of this up here, this is still solid, this is still good. This stuff I'm not worried about, okay? This is all good, solid frame. So I don't wanna remove any more of the good frame than I need to. The next thing is, I wanna make sure that I can match up and lay out and have good reference points to put it all back together. And the final reason is I don't want to cut through holes because that eliminates area that I can weld back together. And I want to try not to cut through any existing bolt holes or mounts or anything because I want to put this back together and I want it to look like nothing ever happened. So this is where I actually made my first layout to decide exactly where I'm going to make my cuts. And I've laid out identical on both sides. So I chose first my vertical cut, which is going to come right down between this hole, leaving room for me to weld right down to this point. And then I chose where I'm going to make my front vertical cut right over here. Straight down. And then once I had those, all I'm going to do is just a level cut straight in between. And then I just transfer these lines around. I haven't marked the nice frame yet. Let me rephrase. I haven't marked the crashed frame yet. But this frame is super solid the whole way back. So when I'm ready, I'll come over here. We're going to start on that side. And I'll make my marks, I'll map it out, I'll draw it out, and I'll show you how I did it. So if you want to cut and chop a frame, even if you're shortening or splicing or whatever it is, you can duplicate this and get the same results I'm going to get. But we're going to do that tomorrow because I just looked at the clock and it's midnight and I need to get some sleep. So I'm going to go in, get some rest. Tomorrow I'll come down, I'll show you how to lay this out. Make sure that you have exactly identical markings on both frames, and that way everything goes right back together like pieces of a puzzle, just perfect. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Well, everybody, it's the next evening, and I'm ready to get my layout marks made on my good frame here, and I'm gonna show you how to do it. I've got all my stuff gathered up to do this. You don't need anything special for this, guys. Part of why it was so important that I get both frames jigged up exactly the same, like I said earlier, is because that is what's going to make it possible for us to make identical marks on both frames using nothing but, I'm just going to use a 6-inch level, a 4-foot level, and a tape measure. I'm going to use a Sharpie also just to do my marking because it's easy. And like I said before, the width of the Sharpie mark is the same thickness as my cutoff wheel blade. So I know, just cut right on my line and I'll be exactly the same on both sides, on both frames. Now another important part of this is when you're measuring and you're using a tape measure, when it needs to be really accurate, like it does in this situation, we're gonna burn an inch on the end of all our measurements. And what I mean by that is, we're not measuring from the end of the tape measure. I'm gonna start by placing, I may use the 2-inch line, I may use the 3-inch line, it'll just depend on what I can fit. But I'm gonna measure from one mark to wherever I need to be. For example, and hopefully you can see this, my first line that I'm going to lay out here, I need to measure 5/16 of an inch forward of the edge of this oval shaped hole here. So I'm going to put my 3-inch mark on that hole, and at the 5/16 mark, that's where I'm going to actually make my slash to draw my line. So I'm going to try to get you in position so you can see what I'm doing, and then we're going to get this side laid out. All right, hopefully this is close enough that you can see. I'm going to make my first mark here. So, like I said before, I used the driver's side frame rail to make my initial layout on the other frame. Now all I'm doing is duplicating it on this frame rail, and then I'll be duplicating the rear image of it on the other side. So my first mark here, my vertical cut needs to be 5/16 of an inch forward of the edge of this hole. So I'm going to start with my tape. Maybe, if I can remember how I did this. Yeah, like that. So I've got my 2-inch line lined up right on the edge of the hole. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16. And I want that to be the rear edge of my mark. So I draw my little mark. I take my 6-inch level. And I'm going to get that level exactly plumb, exactly vertical. Just like so, making sure that my mark is going to fall right on the edge of my line, and then I draw my vertical line. And then, because this is the foundation of my entire layout, I'm going to double check it and make sure that I'm right where I want to be. So there's my 2-inch line. And hopefully you can see this, but the rear edge of the line I just drew is right on that 5/16 mark. And that's exactly what I want. So now I'll take my other measurement and I'll measure from this line to my rear vertical cut, and I'll transfer that over. All right, so my rear vertical cut is 2 7/16 from the rear edge of my forward cut. So I'll line my measure mark right up there. Then I'll come over 2 7/16. Make my mark for my line. Take my level, and again, I'm getting my 6-inch level exactly vertical. Once I have it exactly vertical, I make my mark, just like so. So there's my rear vertical cut. Now I'll measure from this hole down to my horizontal cut line. Okay, so for my vertical, or my horizontal cut rather, I'm gonna be 9/16 from the bottom edge of this hole. I'm gonna line up my tape measure again, right on the edge of the hole. And the top of my line is at 9/16. So I'll make my mark. Move that out of the way. I'll get my level. And again, I'm going to get my level to exactly level. Right there. And make my mark. Boom. I'm going to double check. Exactly. Top of my line, can you see that? Top of my line is right at 9/16 from the bottom of the edge of the hole. So now I've got my main cut lines laid out, but I want to map them, I want to mark them all the way around the bottom edge of the frame on my rear cut and all the way around the top edge of the frame on my forward cut. So I'm going to move the camera and I'll show you how I do that. All right, that's the easy part. I got my map, my cut lines drawn out on the other side also. So now the little bit tricky part, I need to transfer those lines across the top of the frame rails. And there's a very precise way that you can do this using your 4-foot level and your 6-inch level. All right, so I recommend, if you can get your hands on it, a level with magnets, because it'll just help keep it where you need it. But the way we're going to transfer our lines across here is we're going to line up our level, our 6-inch level, right on the edge of our cut line so that the cut line is covered. And now we're going to touch the 4-foot level right to the 6-inch level. All right, so my level, my 6-inch level is lined up exactly on the edge of my cut line. My cut line is covered, and I bring my 4-foot level right up against it. I leave it there. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Double check this side, make sure it didn't move. And it did not. So now, hold my 4-foot level still, and I draw my Sharpie line right across the top of the frame rail. On both sides, right on my level. So now I've got my top cut line lined up exactly with my vertical cut line. I want to transfer that to my inside edge as well. So I take my 4-foot level again, line it up on my cut lines on the top. So I'm just covering that line right up to the edge, lined up as best as I can. Right up on the edge, good. And now I take my 6-inch level, touch it right up against my 4-foot level. And here's the important part. I need to get this 6-inch level exactly vertical, because all of our cuts are exactly vertical while it's touching my 4-foot level, and then I draw my line. Do the same on the other side. Get my 6-inch level exactly vertical. Touching my 4-foot level. Drawing my line. There we go. Now I can show you now you can see I've got my vertical cut line, comes right up over the top of the frame, right around onto the back inside of that C. And it's all exactly parallel. One single plane, so that would be an exactly straight cut slice right through. So now I'll do that same thing again to take my cut line, get it drawn on the bottom rail, and then onto the bottom part of the C. And then my marking is done. I think what I'm gonna do to try to support this stuff, for starters, I'm gonna cut off the back section, the rusty section first. I'm gonna cut that off. I'm gonna bring the tractor in and hold the forks over this chunk of frame and use some ratchet straps to attach it. So when I cut it, this thing doesn't just fall to the floor. If I do it just right, it should also prevent any pinching on my blade. So I'll get this section cut off and moved out of my way. And then I'll cut off my good section and I'll be able to just bring it over and get it put on. So yeah, let me transfer the bottom marks and then we'll start making some sparks fly. All right, I lied. I got all my marks transferred, wrapped around there. Everything is marked out exactly the same, double checked, ready to be cut. Now, before I cut, there's one more thing I need to do. I need to take some measurements diagonally. One, to see if this frame is square right now. I believe it is. But two, to make sure that if it is slightly out of square, that I duplicate it with that new section when I put this thing together. So in order to do that, what I'm gonna do, and ideally I would have someone else here to help me, but we're gonna measure from one corner at the rear to a reference point here. I'm probably gonna use these bed mounts. So I'm gonna figure out exactly how I wanna hold my tape measure here at the rear, because I need something that will be both accurate and repeatable. Probably a set of vice grips or something, holding it exactly lined up where I want. And then I'm gonna write my measurements right on the frame up there. So then when I get the new piece on, I can get it tweaked exactly right. All right, first cuts I'm gonna make on this thing, the inside of the bottom of the C and the bottom of the rail. I'm going to do the rest of my bottom cut. There we go. Now I need to move you and get the tractor, hold this section up so I can cut the rest. Now I want to do the inside of the C on my top rail. Okay, I'm going to do my horizontal cut. across the top. There we go. Last but not least, I'll finish my forward vertical cut. A little bit there to get with the Sawzall. Ta-da! Well, folks, we've got our 2 chunks of frame here. Now all the fun prep work. Ooh. So I've got to get, obviously, and this is a good time to show you, like, we've still got plenty of thickness in the top, the bottom, and the sides on this frame. So we're good to go there, nothing to worry about. But I do need to get it all cleaned up, get all these edges dressed, get all the rust and scale and everything moved off of it so it's a nice clean surface, because I do want to weld this inside and outside. Same on our new rear section. And then I noticed also it's got these two little reinforcements on each side. So I'll get those off. And that shouldn't be a big deal. I don't think that'll give me much of a problem. There's just a little bit of weld right here and a little bit of weld right there. So shouldn't be a big deal to get those off of there. And then while I'm getting stuff prepped and ready, I'm gonna go ahead and get these cut off out of the way, because they are no longer doing us any good either. And that way we'll be ready to put everything back together. So I'm gonna get started on prep work. I don't think I'm gonna finish tonight. And you know, next time you see me, it's gonna be time to start putting things back together. All right, team, I gotta call it for the night. I'm tired. It's a little after midnight. I did not mean to be down here this late. But I just got to go on getting this stuff prepped and cleaned up. And I've got this side fully prepped, cleaned up, beveled. This is ready to be welded. I've got the graft side like 95% prepped. I got to get down in this channel just a little bit more, and this channel just a little bit more, and then this will be ready to be welded also. So I'm gonna go get some rest. I'm probably not gonna be able to get down here tomorrow evening, but then hopefully, I think the following evening, I should be able to get down here, and we'll get everything fit up, measured out, tacked, measured, and then hopefully get it all welded back together. So I'll see you in a day or two. All right, everybody. It's not the next night, it's the one after. Friday night for me, and a little after 10 o'clock. I've been down here for a little over an hour, and I finally have got this thing jigged up in position and ready to start throwing some tacks on it and getting it set where I want it. So I've got this side lined up really well. I've got the other side lined up really well. I'm level side to side. I'm level front to back. And see, this is where getting it set up that way makes it easier for me to put it back together this way, because I know I needed my rear frame rails to be level front to back and level side to side. So I've got that. I took my diagonal measurements corner to corner, and I'm within a 16th of an inch on both diagonals, which a 16th is good enough for this. I mean, honestly, I've seen frames from the factory further out of whack than that, so to be back within a 16th of what it was, I think we're gonna be just fine. And my prep is all done. I got right down to clean metal on all of them, and I'm jigged up here. So I'm gonna put my first tack right on the bottom outside corner of each frame rail. I'll do the same on the other side, and then I'll go through. I'll get my gaps just so, get it all welded up, make sure I stay in position. It's a slow process. You can't be in a rush on this, but we're getting to the point now that I can start really getting stuff put back together, and I'm gonna do it. So I'll throw some welds at this thing. I'll bring you back in a little bit. Well, I think I'm at a point now. I'll set you up for a time lapse. Before I do, here we go. We're all tacked in place. Parallel frame rails nice and flush with each other. I checked my diagonals both ways, still within a 16th of an inch. I'm still level front to back. I'm still level side to side. So it's ready to be welded. Now, the key to this is you don't want to just do one whole side and then go to the other side. I'm going to do about a 1-inch strip, then go to the other side, do a 1-inch strip, work my way back and forth slowly. I'm not trying to get these frame rails super duper mega hot so they expand and then contract and pull themselves all out of shape. I want to try to keep my heat relatively. I want to have good heat to penetrate the frame, get all the way through that 8th, get a good solid weld, but I don't want to do that for the whole, 9 inches of cut. So I'll probably set you up and I'll just zip, 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 zip back and forth for a bit, get this thing welded up. Everybody, next morning, and I left off last night finishing getting the top and outside welded, and I decided I wanted to finish my welds, and I think they look pretty good. This side looks good. And this side looks good. So next step, now that it's fully welded, you can see I'm still level front to back. I'm still level side to side. So I don't feel like it moved while the weld's cooled, which is excellent and what I expected. So now I feel safe, comfortable. I'm gonna raise it up, get the bottom underneath welded, and then get all of the inside that I can reach welded. So I'll get all that welded up. I'll finish off the bottom just like I did the top and sides, and then probably start making a template for my plates on the inside of the frame rails here. I'm just gonna do some cardboard aided design, make a template, and then turn it from cardboard into steel, and then cut it out and put it on there. All right, team, maybe last little update for today. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to get back out here later or not. But I got a frame fully welded. She is cock block ready to rock as far as the frame rails. Now I got my cardboard template made up for my gusset plate, which sits, I'm going to do it right like so. I transferred that onto my 1/8 inch steel plate. So when I come back down later, if I can get back down later, I'll be able to cut those out. We'll get those welded on. And then I did discover one other piece that I'm gonna need to replace. Down here, see that daylight? You're not supposed to be able to see daylight there. And these are the little reinforcements for the bottom of the leaf spring hangers. Fortunately, they're beautiful on that frame. So I'm gonna get those. Once I get this thing sitting back on the rear suspension, I'm gonna get those off. I'll get those off to bring them over. And then the body mounts on this thing, that one's pretty smoked. This one actually looks okay, but that one's pretty bad. That one over there is pretty bad. And the body mounts again on the parts frame, these look nice. So I'm probably gonna end up cutting out these as well and getting them welded onto the new frame, onto the other frame too. So got a bit more cutting and welding to do, but at least I'm almost done with this frame graft, and then I'll be able to get it sitting back on its own weight. And the body mounts and stuff are nowhere near as precise as this needed to be, so that'll be pretty simple. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys in a little while. It's the next day, guys. I didn't make it back down here yesterday evening, but I did finish. Where'd I put them? I did finish getting my little boxing plates made up. Here's the driver's side, passenger side. I went ahead and sprayed some paint inside the frame rails. I haven't prepped this side, finished prepping this side for welding yet. But this side, I've got it prepped. I painted on the inside where I won't be able to access. And I'm gonna get that plate stuck up on here and weld it up. Nothing crazy difficult. Get it in place, clamp it, tack it, weld it. Well, everybody, it's the next evening. I'm back down here, and I'm getting ready to go up for the night. It's about 11:30, but I've just been putting in the work, just getting stuff done. I'm trying to make progress. I want to get this. There's other things I want to do, so I'm trying to blast through this thing, and I'm not doing anything super exciting or complicated. Especially now, it's just going to be, I'll do a little bit of information on converting this one to V8, because the 99 to 02 V8s are drive-by cable also, just like the V6, which makes it very, very simple to convert these. So I will go into a little bit of detail on that probably in the next video. But for now, here's where I'm at. So I've got the whole rear back together. I painted the frame. I got the fuel tank back in. I've got the spare tire back up on there. A rear axle back in place. Painted the axle, painted the springs. I haven't tightened the shock mount bolts or the spring hanger bolts yet. I probably won't tighten those until I have the whole truck put back together and sitting on its weight. That's the appropriate time to tighten those bolts. But I think it looks pretty good. I mean, if I didn't know better, I think it was all factory, the way GM made it, which is what the goal was. Have it appear, look, and function factory. And honestly, I think it'll be a little bit stronger than factory because of this gusset plate that we've got welded in here. So replace these little reinforcements on both sides that were rusted out. I went through, I fixed my rusted out body mount holes on both sides. So they're all the correct shape again, good to go. And oh, you probably saw it there. I pulled the engine out of the donor truck and I welded the rear axle to the frame, put a couple tacks on it. I'm just gonna use this to store my spare axles on. I can probably fit, you know, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 axles here in the middle portion. And I've been trying to come up with a way to store my spare axles that'll keep them up off the ground and also be able to move them if I need to. And I think that's gonna work. Like, it's super simple, but it'll do the trick. So that engine is for sale, L35 V6. It's only got 91,000 miles on it. It's a good little engine. Ran like a top. So hopefully somebody will come by that and get it out of my way, and I can continue along on this thing. I think that's the end of this video, team. Like I said, the frame is ready. I'm gonna pull the drivetrain out of this one tomorrow. I'm gonna pull it as a unit, engine, transmission, transfer case. I'm gonna separate the transmission from the engine, keep the transmission and transfer case together, and then I'll just bolt this engine, this transmission transfer case to the V8. And again, I'll get into that in more detail when we're actually in the next video. But yeah, I'll get those out, and then I want to paint the rest of the frame. And I got a few other little odds and ends. I have bump stops for the front. I have new shocks for the front because those ones are rusted out and leaking. And we'll address anything else too. Like I said, this thing's gonna have to go through enhanced inspection, so it's gotta be in tip top, everything right, everything good, everything where it should be condition. So we'll get it there. All right, everybody, well, it's several nights later. We took a long weekend for Labor Day weekend. We went camping, spent time with the family, all that jazz. I've been plugging away in the evenings where I can, and the frame is complete. It is ready to start being put back together. The whole frame is painted. I did go through, I pressure washed everything. So everything was clean down to the bare metal, and then repainted everything with Rust-Oleum. It's not a chassis paint job like I did on my silver single cab, but it's Rust-Oleum, semi-gloss black. It's good paint, should stay on there. Everything was nice and clean. So it looks way, way, way better than it did before. It should be much, much, much stronger than it was before. I put new bump stops in the front. We've got new shock absorbers, front and rear. I've got new brake hoses in the front. The old ones were dry cracked, so I went ahead and replaced those. And everything up here, steering is all tight. Everything looks good up in the front. So I don't think we have any more chassis or framework to do on this project, which to me means that's the end of this video. We'll get into the next steps on the next video, but that's it for this one. If you have any questions, guys, about what I did or cutting, sectioning frames or any of that stuff, drop them in the comments. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. And I appreciate all of you watching. Until the next video, everybody, take care.